Good evening. This video is intended to be a summary of my prior video, which kind of dragged on and went on many rabbit trails regarding ruling things out in advance. When I talk about ruling things out in advance, imagine a table where there are people around the table discussing the biggest mysteries of life, for instance. Or for that matter, picture a table surrounded by scientists, for instance, just to give a different point of view there for just a quick second, a different mental image. And they're discussing a topic, and they're looking at all the evidences laid out. Maybe they're in this, I'm going to use the idea of this universe and all the effect that we observe. We're living in essence, a kind of an effect. We are able to, we're conscious beings. We can contemplate our existence. We think about what matters. We have like moral codes within us. We have a lot of ideas. So, but say it was a scientific endeavor, something that was being researched, and we've got some evidences, some effects on the table. I just want to kind of discuss, imagine if you're seeking the truth for something, and say that all the individuals involved are all moral, rational, logical, and fact-driven creatures. That we're beings that care about those things, that we esteem morality and goodness, truth and facts. I mean, how awesome. So anyway, imagine though somebody saying, let's talk about X. Let's talk about, say, existence, matter, and time, and as we know it. Let's talk about this thing. But before we begin, there are some options. There are some unpalatable options on this table. Let's just take those off the table before we get going, because they're just so ridiculous. They are so utterly ridiculous and stupid even. We can't believe that someone even put them there. Let's get rid of that before we even get started, because we don't want to muddy up this, nice discussion that they're hoping to have. And so then they remove certain items before they can even see where the evidence is for the topic would naturally lead. So you've got evidences, you've got effects, you've got things you're looking at, and you're trying to make sense of it. There's no denying those things. But before you're able to really lay out, you're looking at what's left on the table now. You're looking at what's left of this, that, and the other. These are now pre-approved options of what would even be allowed to be discussed, to be able to explain. What I'm trying to say here is, isn't it better? Isn't it more moral, rational, logical, and fact-driven to leave all the possible options on the table, no matter how ridiculous they might seem at first glance? If they really are so utterly ridiculous, certain ideas I'm saying, won't they eliminate themselves soon enough anyway? Why are we pre-applying rules that don't make rational sense? Scientists ought not to do that. That doesn't make any sense. So in essence, what I think sometimes is happening, I think on the one hand we would all agree that what I'm referring to here is a great idea, to just allow all the things to stay on the table. But yet we don't. We're at a point in history here where it's getting very unfashionable. Again, this has happened in the past, I'm sure too, as we know. But it's getting unfashionable to include the idea of a God. And it's sad because you see a lot of fallacies being applied. And what I'm talking about here is a sort of a fallacy. It's kind of like cheating to win. When you don't want something to be true and you just don't like it, sometimes I think that's what it turns out to be, quite honestly. That's a form of wanting your idea to win. Everybody hopes that their ownership of the truth on given topics. But the thing is, this is such a big topic, our existence and what explains it is what I'm referring to there, that there's a lot to lose here. There's a lot to be gained and a lot to lose. I just find it kind of ironic too, if I could be so bold. Strangely, sometimes the things that are removed from such a metaphorical table are the very kinds of things that also explain the people that would want to remove such things from said table. Isn't that funny? So anyway, the view I hold, I am a theist. I believe there is a mind and a powerful being that it explains this universe. It's not that is a delightful idea to many people, or even, a lot of people don't like that, but that, I think preferences honestly need to take a back seat to what is real and true and factual. And I think that my encouragement here is basically just to encourage people to not take examples like take anything off the table when we're discussing things. Mock it all you want, but don't play games with yourself. Trying to win in a debate or discussion by, in essence, cheating to win is a very, very weak position to come from. So, again, everybody has their choices to make, and people to align with. And I think that with a lot of the books and authors and philosophers coming out and speaking so boldly against religion, for example, is getting taking quite a beating lately, but for really poor reasons. And it's unfortunate. Usually the reasons that ultimately end up being given are reasons that everybody would agree, almost everybody would agree, are totally wrong. I don't think it's fair to judge all religion by the extreme actions of a few people. That doesn't really make sense. So whenever you can honestly look at your own beliefs and views and say, am I being fair? Am I applying consistent standards to all of the things consistently? Or do I have to play games? Then you'll kind of know more if you're being honest with yourself. And these are it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing because if you're coming away from religion, say you hear about people who used to believe and whatnot. Say you're coming away and you are so fed up and you almost might feel a relief or something. So you have stake. There's a lot at stake for you in upholding a view that you want to be true. So like the very thing that people accuse spiritual people of, or people of religions of, they're in essence kind of doing the same thing. They don't want to lose some kind of hope, if that's even true of the other side. I don't know. It might occasionally be true that people hold views for what turn out to be poor reasons. I'm not, I don't encourage that, but I'm just sympathetic to the idea that it's kind of scary, if we're honest, to some people to burst that bubble. It's hard to imagine if you're an atheist, for instance. I gotta think that would be an awful feeling, to be encouraged to really consider if there could be a God. But I'm actually asking that. I'm actually considering that to be a good thing to think it through, because I feel like I've been actually encouraged by atheists, for example, and humanists even in the past, to challenge my views. They've wanted to challenge my views on things. And I gotta admit, that was unnerving. There was a Satanist once even too. I mean, let's be honest, this is crazy if you're willing to talk about things. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This is a couple decades ago that I was kind of more engaged in that. And it was interesting because it's unnerving. But what I came away with is, whatever my view is, whatever your view is, don't you want it to be a strong view? Because as we're going about life, any one of us could have a false view that we're holding as true. But life is precious and flying by, and we don't want to do that. So my best encouragement from this one little angle, but it's actually a very profound idea, back up a bit, is what I would almost suggest, and to myself too, don't rule anything out in advance. And for me, that would include, don't rule the idea of no God, that there is no God. Don't rule that out in advance either. And so I want to be fair to all the sides, and that's what I'm just encouraging. So I hope that makes sense. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a good evening. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.